again, good evening and thanks for tuning in. The Definitive Debates One-on-One series, sponsored by Stoughton News on Facebook and PMPnetwork.com. I'm Mark Snyder, a columnist for the Stoughton Journal since 1998. It started when I was 12. Alongside Jeffrey Pickett, News and Program Director for SMAC, who will be asking the questions. The responses are 60 seconds, rebuttals will be 45 seconds, closing statements are also 60 seconds. We'll try to squeeze in as much as we can in the 30 minutes that we have. I'll let Jeff explain what's going on with the debate tonight and also on the ballot, because it all works together.
All right, thank you, Mark. I too started when I was 12. So the recall election is a series of 3 one-on-one races, and tonight's debate features the incumbent chairman of the Board of Selectmen, David Spanky Sousa, against Christine Howe, and this is for the seat that expires in April 2020. There is also races for the seat that expires in April 2019 and in April 2018. Now, the way that the ballot works is you'll be asked 2 questions per race. The first question is, are you for or against the recall of the incumbent selectman? No matter how you vote on that question, you also have to weigh in on the second question, which is your preferred candidate for that seat. And again, as I mentioned, for this particular show and this particular race for the seat that expires in April 2020, it's the incumbent, David Sousa, and the challenger, Christine Howe. So again, 2 questions. Are you for or against the recall? And then the second question, your preference of candidate. And no matter how you vote on either one, you have to weigh in on both. So, Mark?
We did a card selection, and we'll be starting off the questioning with David Spanky Sousa, and as we end, for their conclusions, they will make a 60-second statement at the end. That will begin with Christine. So the first question will go to David Spanky Sousa, Jeff.
All right, thank you. So where it's a half-hour debate, I don't want to spend a terrible amount of time on this, but I do want to bring up the Instagram post that has made headlines over the last week since the November 7th meeting of the Board of Selectmen. And so just to fill in residents who may not be aware or familiar with Instagram, it was a post from one of Christine's younger siblings who is under the age of 18. And it showed a picture actually of Christine and me during an interview, one-on-one interview that we did. And the quote in part read, "Yes, honey, you take down that boys club. No more bully white old men who have done illegal stuff." Mr. Sousa brought printouts of the Instagram post to the November 7th Board of Selectmen meeting and told the Brockton Enterprise that these posts that he brought to the meeting were put in his mailbox. So just in very general, I'd like to get your reaction, your take on this issue.
Well, first of all, I thought we were here thank you for having us and all that, but first of all, I thought we were here to discuss the debate of why they're recalling these false allegations. But first of all, these things were left in my mailbox, Jeff and Mark, a stack of them. People know how we react, the recall side knows how we react. This was put on this was either from the Howe campaign or the recall campaign, fact and simple. If this was me, I would have went up there with my head between my tail and apologized to the Board of Selectmen allowing this. And I would have taken my kid's phone away. My kids would never have a phone again until they paid for their own phone. Biggest thing is, if this is what's allowed at the Howe households, bigotry, racism, hatred, my kids know one thing, plain and simple. Don't be a follower, be a leader. Treat people the way you want to be treated. I brought these in to show people how we're being treated. I did not know it was a thing. Willow tree, what's a willow tree? If I was in a willow trees, I go to Market Basket and it's chicken pot pie in the frozen section. For me, that's a willow tree. But to make these allegations about me, I've been doing stuff for this town for 30 years and everything else. So these are just false allegations, and they have nothing better to do. I expect an apology from the Howe family, the Howe campaign, and the recall campaign. Yeah, no time. You want, and also.
I believe it's my turn for the rebuttal.
I want to be apologized because this is what it is.
So what I will say is that first of all, it was not a plant, and my sister did post those in her private Instagram account. The reason my father and mother went to that meeting was to find out why the products of their child were being handed out at a public meeting. As you know, political materials are not to be distributed at an open meeting. And as a member of the Board of Selectmen, you have a duty and an obligation to do what's right, to stand up and be a leader in the town, to distribute pamphlets and flyers with the intent of, embarrassing or drawing attention to a political handout an issue at a public meeting for the town is completely inappropriate. So a lot of bad things are said online and behind keyboards. It's your duty as a public official to stand up and be able to take it and do what's right in the face of the public and not bring this out and distribute at a Board of Selectmen meeting.
Do you want to rebut that at all?
I would love to rebut that. How funny is it? It says you come up and say rebut. First of all, I didn't pass it out. I left it on the table. Yes, I did leave it on the table. And we're supposed to take the stuff. Trust me, if you see Facebook and you keyboard warriors, like you don't like it, destroy me. I don't care about I have a younger child at home, 14 and 15. There's allegations of this Instagram, not Instagram, Facebook with the kids with the SWAT stickers all over the world. There's other in the school, allegedly there's a teacher sleeping with a minor under the age of 17. These wasn't and my question is now that your parents are coming up, you're running for, as politician, as you say, to come up to put your seat in the hot seat. I'm in the hot seat. But your father's going to come protect you every time you get into the things. Your father told me straight out that you can handle yourself. First instant, he comes up and he's already trying to protect you. So are you ready to become a member of the Board of Selectmen? In my opinion, I really don't think you are. Plain and simple.
Do I have time for a rebuttal?
You do.
Right. My father was not protecting me. He was protecting his 17-year-old daughter, who you exploited by putting those flyers out. I understand you didn't know where they came from, but the issue is not who wrote the post. The issue is not how it got in your mailbox or how you took it. It's the fact that you handed it out next to agendas for public distribution at a meeting. As a member of the Board of Selectmen, you're very well aware of what open meeting laws are by this point, I would hope, and you're not allowed to politically campaign. That was a political flyer in nature, and you should not have distributed that at the meeting, regardless of who wrote it. But prior to my father even being at that meeting, you wouldn't have known who even made the post. So, that's what I have to say about that, and I think that you should also consider
This
that.
is the last.
I need 30 seconds because I get
The last one.
How funny is it though, but how do they know to call your father? Your father hasn't been there. I've been there 4 years. I've seen you at a meeting once, actually twice. I'm sorry, last night was the second meeting I saw you at a selectmen's meeting. Your father has been to 2 meetings. How do they know to call your father? This was plain and simple, you guys planted. Don't lie, it's okay.
We did not plant that.
Okay, well how did it show up in my mailbox? Come on, you guys are
I don't
you guys are
even know
great.
where you
Oh,
live, so.
You guys know where I live, come on, it's in the public record, come on.
All right.
Let's go
Beautiful,
to the
you
next
guys are
question.
great.
This one's for Christine.
All
Thank
right,
you.
so let's get on to the topics. I did want to bring up that post because it was newsworthy and had received several comments on Facebook and articles in the Enterprise. The affidavits that were filed to put the recall in motion, for Mr. Brown and Mr. Cohn, there were 4 articles. Yours had an additional one, Mr. Sousa, and so I wanted as a question to have each of you weigh in on the additional point in the affidavit, and yours was that you have committed acts of malfeasance, including but not limited to making threats against members of the public who had wished to be heard at public meetings and making threats against town employees. So, Christine, I was hoping you could weigh in on that and substantiate that with what that with specific events, and then Mr. Sousa or David to weigh in on that with how you take that point.
So, Christine.
So at several of the meetings over the summer, the first one specifically was the appointment of Bill Rowe as interim town manager. That meeting was 15 minutes long, and when citizens got up to comment about the appointment, which went against the town charter, which requires a majority +1 to fire the town manager, there was a lot of yelling. Selectman Sousa was banging the gavel repeatedly and asked the police, I believe, 7 times to remove people from the public meeting. He asked the officers to remove people. In addition, in August of 2016, Maureen Doherty, the procurement officer, went before the board and expressed her concerns about fear for reprisal for her job because of a few procurements that happened with Cedar Hill and another project. So there's been multiple instances where the chairman has threatened town employees with their jobs, referenced 7 cancers in town to be removed, as well as at the open meetings for the appointment of Bill Rowe as town manager, and then the appointment of Steve Nastis as interim town manager.
I like that one. That's a really good one. First of all, we did not fire the town manager. That's what they keep saying, we did not fire the town manager. We did not renew his contract. Joe Feaster was hired on a 2-2 vote. The town charter says 3 to hire, 4 to fire. Joe Feaster was appointed on a 2-2 vote. How do you hire an interim town manager when you don't have a 3 vote? We had a 3 vote. We did not renew his contract. The Attorney General said Bill Rowe was legally done right. Stephen Astis was legally done right. These allegations I'm assaulting people or threatening people, where's the police report? I was assaulted last Tuesday when your father came up. Another ploy, they assaulted me, first time ever. I mean assaulted, to do what I do for free, 40 to 75 hours a week, assaulted by the recall campaign. So I had to file a police report. I've never had a police report filed on me, so please show me how bad and evil I am. That's all I do is help people, so I love it. I love it.
There's a lot of points to unpack there. The ones that I will choose, because we've moved on from the Instagram incident, is the appointment of Joe Feaster as interim. That was done with a majority vote. That was not a 2-2 vote at an open meeting. And I'm not sure the assaults that you're referencing, but you know, the behavior of a leader of the town, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, should be to allow for open and public comment, to be respectful of those individuals that are attending meetings, the residents of the town, who you are obligated to serve. When you're sworn in as a member of the board, you sign an oath to serve the public, everyone's interests, both sides, those that you don't agree with and those that you do agree with. And by cutting off public comment and by gaveling people out, requesting police officers to remove you from a meeting, that is simply blocking that and not allowing for an open, transparent process, which is your duty as a member of the Board of Selectmen.
First of all, Christine, citizens' comments is a privilege. We don't have to have citizens' comments. When the recall side constantly keeps coming up to us and not letting us doing business, what am I going to do? I have to stop it. As the chairman of the board and as the highest authority of the town running that meeting, I have to stop the meeting. I have a town to run. We have a town to run. The Board of Selectmen has a town to run. When the recall side comes up and constantly tries to stop us, the question is to me now, when this recall goes through and we win again, all 3 of us win, what are you going to do now? You're going to recall us again in 120 days? Because you went around supporting the recall and then you became a candidate. Why didn't you run me when I ran past April? Why didn't you run then? You said it on Facebook and everything else. You've told people straight out in the debates I saw you, you're doing this for political gain so you can move yourself up in a career. I know what my career is. I am a construction worker. I'm okay with that. But my heart and soul is the town of Stoughton, plain and simple. Proven, I've proved it over and over again for the past 30 years. What have you have? You have nothing to prove for it. So I'm sorry, but all the power to you.
You can rebut that if you like.
I am not doing this to advance my career. In fact, this would probably negatively impact my career. I'm doing this because I care about the town of Stoughton. After seeing the inaction of the board's job, as you said, is to get things done. By not putting things on meeting agendas, by ignoring requests to put things on meeting agendas from your fellow selectmen, such as Bob O'Regan or Michael Sullivan, you're not moving the town forward. There's been inaction in terms of seeking out to find a new town manager. That search committee hasn't come together. There's been nothing but delays and stalls, and this board has been completely inactive. So I'm not doing this to better my career, to become some politician. I'm doing this because I care about the town, and I need to return trust to that board, to entrust to the residents that things are going to get done and projects are going to be completed.
The next question.
Can I just rebuttal that quick?
Go ahead.
Transparency. No one's been more transparent than I have. And first of all, with Bob O'Regan and everything else, these are lies. We're trying to get things done. You are going to sit there and be a puppet master for these people. So you guys are saying we're 3-2 votes, and now it's okay to be 5-0 vote. We moved the town forward. And then I watched you the other day in your debate saying that you're going to go talk to the people. And you're going to go talk to the residents. Well, you can't talk to the residents because the recall side says we're not supposed to talk to the residents. So why are you out there talking to the residents? Because your recall side says, as I go to people's doors and I answer them on Facebook, and they call me 2 o'clock in the morning when they have an issue, your recall side says I shouldn't be doing that. So how are you talking to the residents? I'd like to know that because your recall side says you can't talk to the residents, so I wouldn't be talking to the residents because you might get in trouble.
You can respond to that.
There's a difference between talking to the residents and subverting the authority of the town manager to manage the town and the department heads to manage the town. By doing things like calling up the DPW superintendent and requesting that something be done immediately impacts negatively the schedule of everything that was planned and determined by that department head. We've hired these individuals because they're qualified. To have a selectman inserting himself into all of the town's business results in mismanagement and confusion. There's a hierarchy of management that's established from the top down, and we've hired the department heads and those employees to do the best job they can. So there's a difference between talking to the residents and listening to them, providing an ear for their concerns and understanding the priorities short-term and long-term, and then subverting the management structure of the town by, going above and beyond department heads and their duties and responsibilities.
First of all, not true. I called Tom Fitzgerald to find out how this works. He told me they're gonna go back after all the roads are paved and they're gonna fix everything. So you're saying I'm telling the department heads what to do? That is not true. I got information, I called the department heads. That's what I do and give the residents an answer. So how do you say I'm telling I don't run the day-to-day operations. Our job is to help people. That's what I was elected to do, and I will do that until April 2020.
By interrupting the day in the schedule, you remove resources from projects that have people allocated to them, and then expedite other projects. So
how did I called and said, excuse me, when is this going to get done? Because people need to know. I didn't tell them when to do it. He said a couple weeks. I tell the lady it'll be done in a couple weeks because this is how they're doing it.
This is what you run your whole platform on, is being able to get things done, and you don't
How
understand
did I get
that
things done? I asked
there's a structure in place to address with department heads
and I did call
and
I called the
staff and
superintendent of
employees.
public works.
It's their job to manage the town.
I think we're going to go to the next question here. This one's going for Spanky.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, let's talk about open meeting law complaints. And I'd like to get your take on the open meeting law complaints that have been filed against the Board of Selectmen recently, but also for both of you to weigh in on the fact that with these open meeting law complaints, it wasn't too long ago that many of the people who may be supporting these open meeting law complaints were very vocal when a member of the school committee was making several open meeting law complaints, and even went so far as to censure him in part for costing the town a significant amount of money with legal costs. So I'd like to weigh in on what makes these open meeting law complaints all of a sudden all right when those were detrimental to the town, because at the end of the day, there's still cost to the town.
Spanky?
Absolutely. That was, you're talking about former school committee member Joe Sousa. That's how funny, because the people who speak the truth and transparency get in trouble. How funny this guy who's from Swansea, Seacon, coming out is making complaints. No disrespect, Jeff. And Mark, we abut Avon, Randolph, Canton, Brockton, Easton. Why would I care what's happening in the towns? Hey, but I worry about the town of Stoughton. So this guy who's getting these filed open meeting complaints, it's got to be somebody from the recall side, a friend of theirs, because if you put the facts together, it's positive. And the only thing they got me on was saying, I forgot to say this meeting, oh, yeah, and by the way, we're being recorded and taped live here on SMAC because we will get an open meeting live for this, so just let you two know that. So that's the only thing they got me on, but the school committee does it, redevelopment authority does it, everybody else does this, so how funny this is,
In all fairness, why wasn't Mr. Anastos listed on the July 25th agenda? That was the one thing that the Attorney General did come down the most recent decision.
But they said it was
they said
oversight. It was an oversight,
they
but
determined that you didn't deliberate outside of the body,
correct,
public
we did.
body, but
we
that
did.
it should have been put on
It was
the
an
agenda.
oversight, and it happens. And it's like I says, it's not the first time, it's not the last time. It happens on all these other boards, but they're going to just focus on this. Like I said, they put a spin for negativity constantly. That's what it comes down to, Jeff. Like I says, the judge says we did nothing wrong. The Attorney General says we've done nothing wrong on both hiring of Bill Rowe and Stephen Estes. This town is moving forward. The morale is great. So, I mean, show me what is we doing wrong? We are the people, so.
Christine?
So I think the crux of your first question was, if these things have happened in the past and were wrong and people weren't up in arms about them, why are they suddenly today?
Well, it's more or less it's kind of the same people who have filed the open meeting, or I shouldn't say that the very same people, the people supporting the recall, like some of the people supporting the recall have been critical of, in the past, open meeting law complaints that were filed, and now are filing open meeting law complaints at a pretty rapid rate. So I'm just asking,
ultimately, the actions of the past that were wrong don't undo wrongdoings of today. So if there are things that are wrong today that are being practiced by the board, then they should definitely be called out on them and served the issuance from the Attorney General's office. As you mentioned, the board did not put Stephen Estes' name on the agenda, and that was the violation that the Attorney General pulled out of that open meeting law complaint. And the whole reason for filing these complaints is because the process to hire the interim town manager and to remove the previous town manager was done with no transparency. There was no idea that this was going to happen, and there was no citizens' comments allowed on those agendas. And so people were suspicious. People were concerned. They weren't able to see, a resume or qualifications or interviews or any process put in place to hire the interim town manager. So those residents were concerned that there had been open meeting law violations because of the complete lack of transparency. For three individuals to vote for someone after not even having met them or supposedly not met them, two of the board members certainly hadn't. I know Michael Sullivan hadn't met Stephen Astis prior to his hiring. That's what incited these open meeting law violations.
Go ahead.
These open meeting laws, that's all they can get us on because there's nothing they can get us on. That's the funniest part. And then they said, Joe Feaster, once again, there was three people supposedly going for interviews. It was somebody from somewhere, it was Mr. Hartman and Mr. Bill Rowe. And I know, Jeff, you were there at that meeting, and a few other people. Mr. Rowe wasn't even offered an interview. They gave it right to Michael Hartman. So this was a mirror show, horse and pony show. This is, move the mirrors around. This was false. We are doing it, it's an interim. We have the authorization to pick who we want. We could have picked, no disrespect, like I told you, we could have picked Ed DeFelice as police chief. We made a motion, it was seconded. It's not going the way the recall side wants it. We are doing what's right for the town of Stoughton. I see the morale, everything's going good. We're for the schools, we're for everything. So I don't know what you guys just keep false allocations, that's all it is. So keep doing what you're doing. The people know the truth.
Do you want to respond to that?
Yes, I will say that for a board to come in with the perspective that they can just do what they want with disregard for process, disregard for the precedent that's been set by other boards, and disregard for doing what's best for the residents through an open and transparent process. And that's the key word there, Mr. Sousa, is process. That's what's been neglected, and that's what residents are up in arms about. And to say that you can just pick anyone and that you have the power to do so as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I think that's an exact quote from your one-on-one with Jeff previously.
That is true.
You wanted to remove the interim from Stephen Astis to prove to the people that you had the power to do so.
And we do
That's
have
a very
and we
That's
do
a
have the
very
power to do
scary
that.
perspective to take because it removes democracy and it removes the entire participation of your legislative body, which is the town meeting. And it's just not a state that I want to live in this town. I want to do what's right for all the residents and not just prove that I have the power to do something as a member of the Board of Selectmen because I say I can.
Did you see us do that, though? We did not do that. First of all, we could say we can do it and legally do it, but I'm not going to do that. Like I've said, I'm going to have a thing. But Bob O'Regan has told Mr. Hartman constantly, Mr. Hartman's going to sue. Mr. Hartman's going to sue. This one's going to sue. Michael Sullivan and Bob Regan says he's going to sue. He's going to sue. Michael Sullivan sent an email to the Redevelopment Authority asking for a vote of no confidence. So a man who's a member of the Board of Selectmen is trying to personally spearhead him and Mr. O'Regan. We are doing everything right. We are moving this town forward. The problem is you guys didn't get your candidate in April, and Mr. Hartman told me straight out, you were supposed to lose. Rick Hill was supposed to get in. You guys unhappy the way the recall came out? And what happens now when you lose this recall again? What happens is hostile takeover that you people want to take over, and you lose again, 120 days again. Are you going to cost the taxpayers again over $26,000? Because that's what you're doing, Christine, plain and simple. You're costing the town $26,000 when we have an election less than 4 months away after this.
I'll let you respond to that.
You keep saying you guys and you lost with your candidate. I'm not sure who the you is in this. I know for the fact for this recall, over 1,300 residents signed the affidavit, the petitions to recall all three members of the Board of Selectmen. And I know that I sit here as a concerned resident, as a member of various committees and boards. I'm not a member of some group, some shadow government.
Committee, excuse me.
I'm a concerned resident who got involved and looked at the current board, saw that there was a lack of professionalism, a lack of openness, a lack of transparency, a lack of trust, and I knew that someone had to step up and return that to the Board of Selectmen. And I'm hoping that by running, people will also understand that there's a candidate here who wants to do what's best for every resident and not just a smaller group or my own interests.
I think we're going to go to the next question because we're just taking too much time.
Yeah.
This is the fourth question. This one goes to Christine.
All right, really quick here because we want to be able to fit in closing remarks. I'd like to discuss the liability of the town with the potential lawsuit with Mr. Hartman, or the potential fallout from the lawsuit from former town manager Michael Hartman. I'd like to cut straight to the facts and what this potentially could do for the town.
Yes, so if you look at other lawsuits that have ensued because of wrongful termination of a town manager, for example, in Easton, there was a settlement, and I think that was triple damages, which resulted in the town having to pay over $600,000 to that individual for the wrongful termination. So in that regard, if his lawsuit is successful, mind you, he filed 5 actions, the injunction, the lawsuit against the town, and then the lawsuit against each individual selectman. If he's successful, the town will probably end up owing, damages, and that will cost us a significant amount. Insurance only covers up to our deductible, which is not adequate to cover the entire damage that would result from the lawsuit. So we'd be on the hook for likely, 6 figures. And that would have to come out of our budget, and that would impact things such as, overtime for police officers, overtime for firefighters, personnel, paying into our building stabilization fund, and overall just impact the budget.
Spanky?
If, it's the word is if, scare tactics they use. The judge said, wrongful doing was not done. We're already making steps to end the lawsuit. The lawsuit's over. In my opinion, that lawsuit's over. He's not going to win. The real world, you got a contract, it's over. We did not fire him. We did not renew your contract. Thank you very much, plain and simple. So stop telling the people the scare tactic they're going to sue. We're already working with our attorney saying, end the lawsuit, because we're not paying him. It's done. The judge said it's done. It's done. So stop scaring the people. That's going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not happening.
We actually have no time left, so we're going to have only 45 seconds.
30
apiece.
seconds for
30
sorry
seconds.
for a closing response.
Christine, you're first.
My name's Christine Howe, and I'm running in the December 5th recall election. My goal is to return trust and professionalism to the Board of Selectmen. I've been involved in the town for a number of years, and I've lived here. I'm a lifelong resident, and I'm running because I care about Stoughton and its residents. I care about the long-term and short-term future of this town, and I respectfully ask for your vote on December 5th in the recall election. Thank you.
Spanky?
People know who I am. I ask you to keep myself, Bob Cohen, and Peter Brown in. We are your voice. This is your seat, not our seat. So I please ask you to vote me in. I'm here until April 2020, and that's why I expect to still be here until April 2020. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you both for coming. We appreciate it. And thanks to Tomas Bernotis, our timekeeper, Director Michael Hammond, CJ Mullen on cameras, and Dave Young for technical assistance. And I'll say it again, remember to vote on December 5th. If you don't vote, don't complain. Good night, everybody. Stay tuned for the next of the one-on-one debates.